coming up is the ZTO of Vase. I hope I pronounced that all right. Great, not friend, met him a couple of times. Great, insightful person. Ash, everyone, let's give it to him, our first speaker. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to do something. So if you have any question, note it down. We have 18 minutes afterwards for questions. So if you have any questions, do not interrupt Ash. You get your chance, note it down on your phone, in a paper. If you can remember all of them, so you'll be given a chance to ask a question. That's what we're here for. But after he's done with the speech, give it up for Ash, everyone.
You give me a time limit there. Okay. So hi everyone. My name is Asyrique, or Ash. Yeah. So quick ground rules. You can take pictures of the slides. I also want the organizers to share a copy of the slides. Sorry, can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah. So you can take pictures of the slides, but I mean, I want you to focus on the content. So I'll also be working with organizers to share out a copy of the slides after the fact as well. So don't worry if you didn't get to take a picture of particular slides. And also, if you want to chat with friends, I do this sometimes at other meetups as well, other tech events as well. So please do so quietly at the back, or feel free to go over to an area where it doesn't disturb other people. Let's all be respectful. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So quick bio on me. I was at NYU 2013 and 2015. Initially computer science, and then went into behavioral econ because I got bored with computer science. Mainly because people kept saying I wasn't an engineer. Yeah, so, and then after that, hello, yes, okay. I should move away from there. So. Yes. Okay, yes, so, and then in 2015, I came back here for a hackathon, and I met the two co-founders that I have right now, and we built an MVP of a product in a hackathon. We didn't win, but one of the mentors actually inspired us to take it further. And so here we are 4 or 5 years later. And we've scaled the company to 26 employees, 12 of them engineering. And our latest SaaS product is Every for all the companies who want to be consumer first, basically allowing you to understand your consumers at the speed of thought. Some of our clients are below. Okay. So I'm always a big fan of telling people what we're going to talk about, and then after that, telling people what we talked about. So here's what we're going to cover today. What is AI? Where are we now? Where are we going? And where we're going is mainly my personal thoughts, and also what are some strategies for you. I'll split down you into a couple of buckets later on. So first of all, what is AI? Right? $1 million question here. You can't have an AI, you can't have a talk about AI without defining what AI is. So I found this on a Medium publication called Towards Data Science. And it basically defines AI as any technique that enables computers to mimic human intelligence using logic, if, then, else rules, decision trees, and machine learning. So I have a bit of a problem with this definition, because what that means is this, now that I have if, else, is now an AI. So let's all go raise $100 million and make a huge amount of money, right? Yeah, so big problem there. I think that that definition actually comes from a consultancy that will not be named. Okay, so but seriously, right? What is AI, right? So I tried to sample from there's a lot of definitions out there, but I tried to sample from a couple of people that I think should have a relatively balanced view, right? IBM, the guys who basically keep pushing Watson, their AI, and they say that AI is the general concept that machines can be taught to mimic human decision-making and learning behaviors. Okay, that's what IBM thinks. Andrew Ng, who's a very well-known person in the AI community, he also built the AI practice, the machine learning practice and AI practice at Google and then Baidu as well. So he says AI is new electricity. 100 years ago, most people didn't have access to it, but now almost every industry has been transformed by it, by electricity. Also, okay, we're starting to get there, I suppose, but also at the same time, you define AI by talking about another thing, which isn't very useful either. And then finally, McKinsey, right? McKinsey in the Executive's Guide to AI says, AI is the ability of a machine to perform cognitive functions we associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, and problem solving. So we have three fairly well-known people in the industry all having three very different definitions. And this is a problem. And it's a problem because of two factors. One is the hype and buzz factor. So we've been on a kind of ramp up of buzz in the AI field, basically. And it's really driven by this one thing, right? If my company is working on a cool piece of software, but then our competitors say, oh, there's this AI powered, when I go to my customers, they're going to be like, oh, but your competitor's software is AI powered. Why should I buy yours? So it leads to everyone claiming that they're AI or AI powered. So then AI starts to mean a bunch of different things, right? And the other one is fear factor, right? Not the TV show, but the factor of fear, right? Media lives on clicks. And there's strong research to back that given attention overload, titles and pictures that get the most clicks are those which have either a fear or erotic content association with them. Stories about AI displacing jobs are actually the ones that drive the most click-throughs. So media keeps publishing these stories about AI going to replace jobs. AI is going to come for your jobs. AI is going to totally change the world. So we end up in this situation where, thanks Will, by the way, for stealing my thunder just now. So I was going to come up and say, you know what, this is why researchers and scientists got, fed up and came up with three different definitions, three different levels of definitions for them. Right? Will's already talked about artificial narrow intelligence. Thanks, Will. So in this case, it's a non-natural intelligence able to do a narrowly defined thing better than humans. So what I like about this is a calculator is technically an AI as well in this case, right? Anything that can do a particular small, well-defined thing is considered an artificial narrow intelligence. So calculator, Google Sheets, Explorer, AlphaGo, Deep Blue, technically your car, I suppose, because it can go faster than you. No, not necessarily because it's not intelligence. Artificial general intelligence, which is a non-natural intelligence able to reason, think, and problem solve at a human level. And finally, artificial superintelligence, which is an intelligence that far surpasses that of the brightest and most gifted human minds. Okay. So we're done with what is AI. This is the definitions I'm going to be using for this talk. So where are we now? With artificial narrow intelligence, it's everywhere, right? These are all examples of them. And the common feature, I think, between all these and also any of the other ANI examples are automation of a well-defined set of actions normally done by humans. The things that we were really good at automating first were things that were badly done by humans, like maintaining lots of rows of numbers in your head or adding lots of large sums together. Those were the first things that computers were optimized for, right? So these are also examples from Andrew Ng and Harvard Business Review on supervised learning, which is a form of narrow AI as well. So deciding on, let's say, okay, picture, are there human faces in it? And these are the applications. So again, these are all examples of artificial narrow intelligence. So where are we at in 2020 with this? We've pretty much conquered the things that humans can't do very well, right? Doing math operations on large numbers, keeping tracks of large number of bookings, and also communicating across vast distance instantly, deciding how to send a WhatsApp message from your phone to someone else's phone. That's an ANI. We're making good progress on the things that humans can do well, things like identifying things in photos, right? These were things that initially in the 50s and 60s, people thought, wow, this is going to be something we'll figure out in 10, 20 years. Here we are 50, 60, 70 years on, and we are just now getting to the point where we're able to match human level translating, summarizing, and generating languages, and also driving. So the common feature here is things that are very hard for humans and that very many humans can do, and that very many humans do are targets for automation. So things that cost a lot of money because a lot of humans do them. So I'm going to go very quickly through AGI and ASI because we don't really know much about them, right? AGI, where are we now? These are some quotes that haven't aged very well. Machines will be capable within 20 years of doing any work a man can do, and within a generation, the problem of creating artificial intelligence will substantially be solved. The Human Brain Project started in 2010, and its goal was basically try and simulate a human brain. Human brain is 86 billion neurons inside of it, each one of those neurons having 7,000 connections. They, on their website, state that 10 years on, we do not have the computing power to simulate a human brain. They have just completed simulating a mouse brain. So we're at that level right now. So one of the things that I want to point out here is basically, as we've learned more about intelligence, from the 60s to 70s to 80s to 90s to the early 2000s and now, the more we learn about intelligence, the more we realize how complex and how deep it really is, and how hard it will be to actually get to the point of an AGI. And for a superintelligence, I have no idea. Some theories state that a superintelligence will not be made by a human. It will be made by an AGI, right? But yeah, simple point is that we have no idea what a superintelligence would look like. So this is what this is an overview of the AI field right now, given the data that we have. So over the past 50 years, we've discovered different techniques that work very well with different kinds of supervised learning, starting from Excel sheets all the way up to where we are right now. Excel sheets and correlation methods that have been accelerated by our computing capability. And now the neural networks, which were really popular in the 80s and 90s, but then kind of fell in popularity because of computing power, now are starting to have a resurgence, right? Because of our computing power has caught up. So there's actually some very interesting notes here about the potential of other methods that we may have abandoned in the 70s and 80s coming back as we learn new ways to compute things. I want to take a quick segue to also the state of the data science and BI practice. So there's the AI as a field, kind of high level view, and then how it's done in companies today, right? So this is kind of my view of what the state of companies is right now. So here's the state of the BI practice in companies that I see. Barrier to entry in 2020 is low for tooling. So there's tons of libraries out there you can download from PyPy, from everywhere else, right? But it's high for data. And this is the reason why you see everyone is open sourcing their tools, right? TensorFlow, PyTorch, it's all out there, but not their data. Because the data trained on using these tools is where the value is at. Public data sets that are available right now in the world for training these models are mostly weird. This is a term from the humanities. Any humanities, people who study humanities, social sciences here. So this comes from my econ background. We say it's weird, basically Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, right? We don't have a lot of data sets for people outside of these contexts. And also most real world data in most companies is not labeled, it is dirty, in that there's a lot of holes in it, there's a lot of uncertain values, there's a lot of changed structures, and most supervised learning algorithms require a lot of data. So for most companies, they can't really extract the value from BI or data science, the full amount of value that there is from BI or data science. Unsupervised algos, by the way, things like clustering, require even more data. So it's even worse of a situation. This is just a fun tweet that I decided to pull out. Most of the real problem in most orgs is I don't even know, what is that, 50 million, very small data sets, some barely maintained in various people's laptops, Excel sheets on USB drives. This is going to be the situation for most of you who are working right now, most likely. I think you can probably relate. And for those of you who are students right now, this is going to be the situation that you will face when you go into your working world. So how do you well, let's go first into where we're going, and then finally in the strategies part, I'll talk about how you as who you are right now can work in this kind of environment / world. So, yeah, field, where are we going? So as computing become better, again, the growth of the field of AI, I think we can fundamentally tie it to the fact that computing has accelerated. So that's really been the main thing that re-enabled us to focus on neural networks. That also was the main thing that allowed us to focus on correlation, analysis, and all the other clustering methods, etc. So as computing becomes better, we will rediscover more algorithms and approaches that make tasks only humans can do right now easier and faster. This is the case already. This is becoming the case more and more for self-driving. And it's not just these jobs that it's not that these jobs will be eliminated, it's just we will need fewer people in order to get the same amount of productivity. So here's what it will look like compared to an example we've already gone through. It's basically the percentage share of labor force working in agriculture in our world today. How many % of our population as a whole, as humans, works in agriculture? So we start at 1300 with about 65-70%. These are countries, by the way. So let's take Italy as an example, right? So 65%, all the way to 2012 right now with around less than 2%. So it's not that the number of people eating has grown less. In fact, you could argue that the number of people eating has grown a lot more. It's just that very few people can generate a lot more value. So this is what I believe is going to happen in fields that share these characteristics. So this is not new or purely because of AI. It's been happening constantly during the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. But faster computing will continue to accelerate this. And these are the characteristics I see for these jobs, right? Highly repetitive, lower predictable variation, large number of people employed in it. For example, why self-driving is a focus right now. The US has about 30% of its population employed in trucking, in transportation. Very large number of people employed in it, so it's very expensive for companies. Or very expensive and also high downside risk. This is why medicine is a big target for AI job, automation replacement as well, right? We've already seen news articles about how algorithms can now detect breast cancer better than doctors can. Yeah. There's also a nice link there about percentage likelihood for will robots take my job. It's a site. Later when the slides are shared, you can click on it. Data is and will continue to be a key resource driving the growth of various forms of ANI. So data remains the key to unlocking more value from algorithms because of the way supervised learning works. And companies that have amassed huge data sets will continue to dominate ANI research and development. We see this already right now with FANG and Microsoft also dominating AI research and development. However, these companies will also need to be aware of keeping their data sets up to date. This is something that I think Google is very good at. I'm not sure about Microsoft. They've tried a couple of times with telemetry in Windows, but people have pushed back. So as ANI experience more in our daily lives, expect to see unintended consequences, right? So these are some examples that I pulled out from the last decade. This one I think was quite famous. Basically recommendation algorithm from Target. When the dad was browsing Target, because Target matched by IP, it basically recommended the dad a crib that the girl was actually searching for, right? This in 2017, Microsoft released a bot on Twitter, and within a day, it basically turned into a raging Nazi because it was trained on Twitter's data set. This was back in 2012. HP's computers had webcam facial recognition for unlocking the computers. They didn't detect black people. They just only detected white faces. And also, this is most recent, in 2019, when the Apple Card, which uses an algorithm developed by Goldman Sachs, actually, given the same indicators, believes that men deserve 20 times the credit limit that women do. So these are all examples of ANI.
I'm like, yay.
Oh, yay, I suppose. That also means it's more likely for you to go in debt as a guy, so boo. But like these are examples of as ANI comes more into our lives, right? It replaces more and more of the interactions we have that were originally being checked by people. Yeah, so, and after all, ANI trained on large data sets from all of us will become a reflection of us as a species. So all our inbuilt biases, all our inbuilt thoughts, stereotypes, all will become part of these algorithms. So what are some strategies for you in this new world, right? So I'm going to try to cover it. Looking at it now, I think this might not be a very good way to structure it, but I was thinking from a different way at the time when I wrote these slides. I think maybe a better way to structure it would be like beginner, kind of, you have some technical capability already, and as someone who's like trying to build an AI or data company, right? So this is a framework that I came up with after working with a bunch of companies. Again, this will be in the slides that I share later as well. So I believe that there are 4 tiers of data companies, there are 4 tiers of companies in terms of their data awareness and ability to use data, right? Tier 1 is where companies have no strategy whatsoever, right? Data is collected, mainly used for business reporting, so things like HR, payroll, etc., stuff like this, all that's necessary for running the business. Tier 2 is data awareness. So in this case, people know that they need to start collecting data. There needs to be some amount of strategy in how to actually go about doing it. They may have a BI team. This is where most companies are at in Malaysia, I believe, right now. They have a BI team. They're trying to get most value from the BI team. Or they hire in a data science team and they want them to do this. right? Or actually, no, they wanted to go here, but the only capability they have is here, right? And then we have tier 3, data by design. These companies have a data team that works closely with engineering and product to implement data strategy across products, right? So data is available in a dashboard, data is democratized across the company. And you can, as an employee, maybe pull data on how your users are using it, etc., and stuff like that. So, and finally, data integration. And this is the level that FANG companies are at, where every time you use their products, they're already running experiments on you. So I'm pretty sure you've had this situation before, where you open your Facebook app and you have your friend next to you, and they have a totally different layout of Facebook in their app, right? This is because Facebook is constantly running A/B tests. They say they have at any one time 30K experiments running across their platform, from things like colors to layout buttons to which posts, etc. And all these experiments are being run. Most of them are being run without human interaction at all. It's a system automatically testing things in order to see what keeps you more engaged in the platform, what keeps you scrolling more. This is more for people who are students and also people who are trying to build data teams, right? I want to go through the quick roles here. So data engineer, data scientist, and data product manager. This is how we structure things at Vase, by the way. So data engineer is responsible for maintaining databases. Scientists are responsible for defining experiments and also running the models, actually creating the models and running them. And finally, the data science manager is responsible for making sure that the team is connected with the business, right? They don't go off on some tangent. So what should you do as a student or as a beginner, right? My personal picks. Number 1, get good at Python and JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Because JavaScript is the most widely deployed language. It runs everywhere. It runs on most of your phones, right? Through a web browser. And Python is the language of data science, right? It's the one that most data science libraries are built in, but there are more and more libraries being built in JavaScript as well. Number 2, get good at data cleaning and data sourcing. This is for you if you're going to go into a company soon. Most likely you'll go into a company and they won't know where their data is. You'll be hired in as a data scientist, for example, or someone who's supposed to focus on data science. And you're supposed to get let's say, sales data, but it's in 3 Excel sheets on 2 USB drives somewhere in someone's backpack, right? So you need to be very good at sourcing the data and also getting good with data cleaning. And finally, get good at engineering. Why? Because building the model is only half the journey. You need to actually get it out there as well. So as a professional working in industry right now, learn how to build a data strategy. When we build products, right? At my company, for example, we always have a product specification. You need to have a data spec as well of where you're going to collect the data, what are you going to do with the data, where is it going to be stored. This is incredibly important because you don't want data analytics to be a last-minute thing that you try to stuff in before production. And finally, learn how to build an experimentation framework. The slide here is really good for building an experimentation framework. If I'm not wrong, it's from Netflix. Finally, as a C-level or founder, keep yourself up to date with what is possible and not so that you can sniff out the bullshit. For the love of God, hire data engineers first before data scientists. Data scientists, most of the time, do not know how to do engineering. If you hire them in and you have no CI/CD pipeline, you have no engineering person, they're going to be stuck because they do not know how to do the parts that you need them to do. Trust your engineers and give them time to experiment. And finally, invest in people, not tools. I've heard so many situations of companies, right, saying, okay, we'll buy a Tableau license and everyone will magically become a data scientist. That's not how it works, right? It's not a buff like in Pokemon Go where your whole team evolves, right? Invest in people, not tools, and then trust those people when they ask to buy a tool. So invest in the people, and when they say, look, we have to use this tool because this tool is the best there is out there, then go out and buy it. And read that article. That is from Sequoia. It is called The Building Blocks of a Data-Informed Company. To go through it would take me an hour and a half, but it is amazing. It gives you all the steps you need in order to learn how to build a data-informed company. In closing, Andrew Ng's quote again, I think is the closest, even though it's very vague. But I think in terms of this, electricity is dangerous. We don't know when we don't know enough about it, but it's incredibly useful once we figure out how to harness it. We're at the beginning right now of learning how to harness ANI and AI in the future. And there's so many sharp corners that we have not yet. We've already hit sometimes, right? And I don't really know what's going to happen in 2030 and 40. I'm actually less optimistic than Will. I think it's going to be easily 2100 before we get to a singularity level. But I believe the trends will be a lot more clear in 2030. So the next decade is going to be freaking awesome, but we're also going to have to watch out for the pitfalls as well. That's it. Yeah, sorry for taking a bit. Oh, right, sorry.
Oh, right, here you go. Not just. Oh, see, doesn't know me after all.
Hello.
You know what? I can use my voice.
Yeah.
That was good. All right. Thank you very much. In the beginning, yeah, that was very thorough, very including. I'm sorry, everyone, if I did any racist/sexist jokes. I just like to test my audience, see how open-minded you are. Most of you are very open-minded. I can see by your reactions. Okay, moving on to our topic. Okay, does anyone have any questions in mind? We'll give the floor to you guys first. Anything, no matter how simple, advanced it is. Go ahead, Martin.
Back to the job opportunity and talking about how jobs like farmers are decreasing. Should we as well showing how much should we increase the AI related jobs? As a human, I think we are very good at creating layers of jobs. So I think with the AI, we're gonna have more layers, aka more jobs. So I think yes, there is less opportunities, but also there is more opportunities in AI.
Yeah.
So it's just more like diving people towards something else.
Yeah, you're right. There will be new job opportunities that will occur. For example, one that I actually think would be kind of cool and we'll probably have in the near future is AI psychologists, right? When you have AGIs, they'll probably need someone to debug them in the way you debug a human, right? So what kind of role would that be? That would be an AI psychologist. Just based on past data though, the number of new jobs created, whether there's two questions here, right? Number one is whether the number of new jobs created will be enough for the majority of people to get good jobs, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is whether the people who are going to be displaced, whether they're able to upskill into those new job opportunities. In the US, for example, there are certain programs right now which are teaching coal miners to code, right? In order to try and upskill them to software engineers. But these are very small, very isolated incidents. And not every coal miner is going to want to learn how to code, right? I mean, we're humans. We have desires, we have wants, we have an idea about what is the kind of job we want as well, right? So, yeah, those are what we're going to see. I think is going to be a displacement, nonetheless. I don't know how big it will be because it really depends on whether we can create enough opportunities. But the other factor is also the human factor, right? Whether or not people are going to want to move. Like, for example, if I told any of you right now, right, tomorrow your job is now obsolete and you need to move to it, you need to totally upskill and learn a new thing, right? Most of you would probably be really frustrated. And that's going to be how most of these people are going to feel.
Yeah, so exactly to this, I don't know if it's on or not.
Yeah, it's on. It is,
Okay.
just speak louder a little bit.
I can repeat your question as well if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, so for exactly this point, I think that we just use our experience. Let's say I'm a doctor, so I can redirect my experience to help AI technical guys to collaborate with them.
Sure.
So actually, like, my job as a doctor is not lost. I'm just redirected to help you more.
Yeah. This is also a very good point, right? And it's one of the reasons why IBM, as of last year, has now changed their definition of AI when they talk about AI. They now say it means augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence. So the idea here being that it's going to co-work with the humans. Again, I'm not saying that there isn't an opportunity for people to co-work with AIs as well as to train them up, right? But businesses fundamentally exist to maximize profit. When you have trained up your AI as a business, for example, what will you do with the person that now the AI can function at a similar level to? Yeah, so what I'm saying is this is something that goes beyond businesses and goes beyond businesses and goes beyond individual as well. This requires some sort of national or international strategy actually because of the displacement. For example, take the US, right? When self-driving trucks become a reality, that's 29 to 30% of the population that is now displaced because as a business owner, are you going to spend a monthly wage on a trucker, or are you going to buy a self-driving truck that has a higher capex initially, but very much lower opex? Capital expenditure and operating expenditure. So how much? Yeah.
Let me get that.
Sorry, you said business words were banned, right? Yeah. Yeah. We can definitely talk about this offline more, I think. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. On the nation level, how can a nation, upcoming nation, not a very strong nation, use AI, what I believe I just saw a couple of days ago in an article, as a trampoline. Trampoline to go to more developed, Instead of looking it down as like, okay, these very strong countries, they're awesome countries, they have very big data sets, they have the talent, they have anything.
Yeah.
How can a developing nation use AI as a trampoline?
This is a tough one.
It is.
This is a tough one because there is a easy way, which requires basically infringing on human privacy, right? Which is what China is using right now. They basically say, you know what, you guys have no privacy whatsoever, we're going to monitor everyone, and we're going to use these huge data sets to trampoline ourselves ahead of the US in terms of AI research. This is actually something that has come up in the US because of tech companies are now petitioning the US government to say we need to make our privacy laws more lax, because if not, we are going to lose out to China. Right? China is going to take the lead in the race to building better models. I have to cap my answer. So very quickly, there's that easy way, which I think a lot of people, especially in more authoritarian countries, will want to go with. And the much harder way, which is to find a way for everyone to participate in the data that they share. Not to be very cliche, but this is one of the reasons why I started my company, because I believe everyone there's value in the data you share, and you shouldn't be giving it away for free. And you should share in the amount of value created from that data as well, whether it's an AI model or whether it's a decision in the future. Yeah.
All right. So one last question. How can people access you? Because our Q&A session is weirdly
I'm really sorry.
I think that some people have questions lingering in their minds. Some of them are a little bit shy. Some are shocked by the Q&A session being done. So how can they access you later?
So my name, I have my name on most social platforms. So Twitter is actually the easiest way to access me. You can also email me on my company email, which is easier to remember than my personal one, which is just the letter A at Vase.ai. So A at Vase.ai. Yeah.
Could it be made easier?
Yeah.
Give everyone a chance right here to ask a question. All right. So
sure,
before you go, we have a token of appreciation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But instead of giving you something that you're just gonna put on your desk or maybe put in the storeroom, we're gonna give you something that benefits you a bit. So it's a book. And Will, knowing you very well, pun intended, has given you a book related to longevity. All right. So, Well, go ahead.
Thank you, Will.